Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 76 of the Grove podcast. I hope you're all doing well today and looking forward to an Arsenal-free weekend. It's not often that we get that chance, and I say that because after 11 games in 34 days, like the players, I think we as fans and podcasters, will someone please think of the podcasters, that we need a little bit of time to refresh, recharge, take stock before going again next week against Leicester. But before we get there, we have the Newcastle game to talk about in the Carabao Cup, and then we're going to have a bit of a chat around the narrative around Miles Lewis-Skelly and the celebration police and whatnot following the City game, and then we'll finish off with a little bit of a current state of play and what next posted by. And joining me today to talk all things Arsenal is Jamie. Jamie, how are you? How's the head?
I'm good, cheers, mate. I feel like every single time I come on one of these, you're asking me what my head's like, so it's starting to make me wonder about my after-work habits. But also, I'm also feeling like I'm looking forward to this break as well, because in the last, Christ, you've done all 11 of them, but the number of times that I've been your counsellor recently, like I feel like I need to start charging an hourly rate, you know?
Yeah, I do appreciate it, and so do our listeners. But yes, I think we're looking forward to it. Saying that, I spotted a break and maybe going to try and do something different over the break. So I may be causing more work for myself. So let's see if that pans out. But I'm not going to say anything just yet because it's just in the infancy. But watch this space. Let's start off with the Newcastle game. Just we'll do a quick preview of that. This is going to be a tough one. What was your high and what was your low from the Newcastle game?
Highlight, final whistle, and not watching it live as well. It was another game I didn't get to see live, and I'm glad I didn't, because I was quite happy to skip along a few bits on the full match rewatch. Low light, I think it's Odegaard's miss, to be honest. I think more than anything else in there, that was real. It just feels very, very us at the moment. So yeah, Odegaard's miss.
Yeah, it was a sliding doors moment, and we'll come to that. No, I hear you. In terms of the highlight, there was nothing about the game that had any real highlights. So for me, I was fortunate enough to go up. So I find that. Huh?
Fortunate.
Well, it's an experience. I'm all about experiences, and for me, actually being there in person, the whole occasion sort of softens the blow because you have so many other distractions to take you away from the football, and just also the way I watch and enjoy football. Yes, the result in the 90 minutes, that's important, but the whole thing. So and also, as I said in the previous podcast, I went to university back in the 90s there, so I hadn't been back for 30 years, so it was just nice to go back. And I went for a couple of runs and I checked out a couple of drinks as well, checked out a few pubs and kebab shops and that I used to frequent, and had a look at the uni, and I even went back to outside one of my old student houses that I used to live in. So that was quite cool, just to do a bit of reminiscing and stuff like that. In terms of a low from the game, for me it was we were never in it. We never put Newcastle under any pressure across the two legs. We were always chasing, and that suited them and their style down to the ground and how they play us. So that was really frustrating. That just never really in it. And that last 35 minutes when we knew the contest was over, was just, you need a boxing referee to come and say, okay, game over. Like, no one wants to get injured. Everyone wants to go home. I know you Newcastle fans are enjoying it, but let's get out of here. So that was quite a tough one, and that was when there was a lot of angry discourse around us, which obviously I wasn't participating in, but certain people were. I guess the one highlight that came out of that is that the fans, once they were resigned to the fact that we were never getting back in it, the banter started to pick up with the Newcastle fans and a bit of back and forth and so on. So that I like that fan, the dark humor, and they can start, okay, right, we're here, we might as well enjoy it, sort of thing. So that wasn't too bad. So there we go. So look, let's start off with the lineup, and I think we talked about this before the game, like, what sort of lineup should we go in? Should we go strong? Should we refresh? I mean, what did you think about the lineup? It was same as City, the team that humbled City, But was that the right decision? Didn't it need refreshing?
It is an interesting question because I think when I saw that it was the team that beat City, you kind of feel immediately like, great, they're on a roll. They're just going to take, hopefully they take the form out of that game into it. But yeah, I mean, maybe one or two sets of fresh legs might have been handy, but I don't know who they would have been necessarily. I can't put a finger on it and say, I think I would have done this or I would have done that, to be completely frank. We know there's a couple of obvious folks that you could stick in there who've also been in decent form recently, like Ethan. But ultimately, it's a strong enough team to go and beat City. It's a strong enough team to go and beat Newcastle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was thinking let's go again, but maybe we didn't take into account the sort of not only physical. I don't think physical, but the mental nature of the City game. We've been building up to that game since we played them at the Etihad, and I don't think people appreciate how much it takes out of you, just that mental capacity to deal with the game and beat them and everything that's surrounding it. So I think maybe as well as the legs, freshening it up would have helped. I mean, this is in hindsight because I said I would have continued with the same team, but I think who we bring in is dictated by the bench and who's available. So the choices would be Calafiori, Marino, and Nwaneri, and maybe that would have just given something a bit different to the team. Whether it would have a different outcome, who knows? But yeah, I think we were sort of caught between a rock and a hard place there, and I think maybe we didn't appreciate that, and then also going in, like, everyone was so focused on the City game and so wanted to win that, having to lift yourself up again when you're sort of 2-0 down. Do you really believe you're going to get back into it, considering? So there's a lot of hindsight stuff there, but yeah, I think maybe a bit of fresh legs just for something different would have helped.
I did think Marino would have been a fun one as well, just especially with his being a former Newcastle player, actually. Something about that felt like it would be worth it. But the weird thing is, I think you're almost... I don't know whether you are the same opinion here, but it sort of felt like he was either going to bring all three of those in or none of them.
Yeah.
It was almost a bit one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, he was never going to do halfway house.
No, I don't think a single player was going to come into the lineup and the rest. It's your reset. You pick a completely different outfit, and the makeup of a lot of those players is very different, right? So they're genuine different tactical choices, in each of those positions. Probably the less so might be Nwaneri, but certainly Calafiori and Marino give you different profiles of players. So it's always going to be whether I think he felt like he needed that from a tactical point of view as much as anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think we'll come on to that because I think one of the criticisms in inverted commas is that we didn't have a plan B. This is Newcastle, okay? So it's always going to be a tough ask to come back. So do you? We said before the game, you just got to be in it with 20 minutes to go, and then throw everything kitchen sink at them, whatever. But you need to be if you need to be in it. Well, there's two ways: either keep it tight and be in it with 20 to go, or you go big and try and get that goal early and unsettle them and try and get the nerves, because the crowd really got nervous. They really got nervous, and it was sort of neither one nor the other. And then also, as I said, we needed that goal to put them under pressure to quieten the crowd. And yeah, instead we sort of looked rattled. We were sloppy. We were unsettled, and that sort of carried on throughout the game. And it stemmed from, there was a short corner that we took within the first few minutes, which just went wrong. And I think it was where Martinelli may have done his hamstring in initially, because he had to then chase back all the way to get it. And so that just sort of summed up. Yeah, I think we wanted to try, but were we really committed to this? And yeah, it just seemed one or the other type stuff. And then there was that, the way Newcastle play, they have a number on us, and they know how to play us, especially once they're in the league. If they get the first goal, they're happy to low block. They're very physical, soak it up, and they've got two excellent forwards who are release valves for them, and we haven't had an answer. And I'll come some stats later. We don't have an answer to that. So, what was your thoughts in terms of how we approached the game and what we could have done different?
It's a tough one. I think pretty much as I said earlier, you've got the lineup that beat City. You should be able to go and beat them. The approach that let us beat City, I think, would probably need to be tempered somewhat against Newcastle, because they're not going to try and hold on to the ball so much. We're not necessarily going to get quite as much out of the front foot press, or there's a lot more risk there, because they are quite willing to pop the ball over the top and bypass their, relatively average midfield in order to get it into the lines for a couple of the quickest players in the league to race after, and that play particularly well in that way. You're going to have Alexander Isak spinning off the whole time in a way that Erling Haaland weirdly doesn't, right? So, yeah, I think it's probably a game where I'd have liked to have seen us exert just a lot more control. It's probably the main thing. And just and more energy. There just wasn't the energy of the City game there at all, was there? There wasn't and it is different. You're going to be slightly more conservative in your press in particular, but that doesn't mean that you should be low on energy.
Yeah.
It's, it might not be quite, and I really felt that was quite visible, that we just looked a little bit unenthused, almost more so than even tired.
Yeah. I think there's another thing. Do you think we struggle, or it looks like we struggle, when teams match up with us physically, or are physical against us? And that's a very Newcastle trait, and they are very borderline, or I'd say over the line, but are allowed to get away with it. And this is what I mean. We don't have a response to that, and it comes up with Newcastle all the time. But also slightly different. But last year, with Bayern Munich, and even Man United in the FA Cup, may not have the best players, but they have big, strong centre back. I look at Dan Burn. How can he be a bloody professional footballer? But he does it. He does a job. And I think there's that. I think we struggle against that physicality, and we should know that. So we should become prepared. And how do we differentiate and get around that? I think that's, and this is where the fans are going, fans will think, well, what are we going to do that's different? And I think Eddie Howe, and I really don't like him, out coaches Arteta whenever we play, but they are reliant on that first goal. And this is why it's so annoying that when we get the first goal, very different story. But when they've got the first goal, and they did it in both legs and in the league fixture, and then we have nothing. And I think in terms of statistics, it's the fifth time Arsenal have lost to Eddie Howe in all competitions with Arteta, and Arsenal have failed to score in 6 of their last 8 matches against Newcastle in all competitions. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they do tend to stretch us vertically, right? So that's a big part of that, I think, and a part of what Eddie Howe does well against us. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a matchup question there. Physicality-wise, I think it's less that we struggle with the physicality and more that normally it's our advantage. So against the vast majority of teams, we're actually able to somewhat physically bully them these days. And you don't get that with Newcastle. They front up to you, they give you it back, right? So it's probably more blunting an advantage of ours, more so, I think, than necessarily asserting some kind of dominance on their end. But yeah, it's a good point, and I think it is a thing. And I certainly do. I tend to agree that I think there is an element of Arteta being outcoached by Howe, and that's a bit of a question mark for him. And it's strange because I can't think of anyone else that's consistently done so with him.
No.
He's conquered the great hill that is Pep Guardiola, the mountain that is Man City, a couple of times now, and ultimately, there's nobody else really that he's struggled with up until this point, I think.
Not consistently, but there is the thing. I think we are better against the better teams. we know that record, like against the so-called Big Six in the Premier League. So teams who will take the game to you, we can pick them apart. We will beat you. And we've struggled with the low block, and we've struggled when we don't get that early goal, or we're struggling because of fitness or form or availability. And actually, there's a couple of other statistics that sum this game up, and the difference between the two teams as well over the legs. We had 34 shots and created 8 big chances across the 2 legs, and we didn't score a goal. The XG like it or lump it, 3.34 to Newcastle, scored 4 goals, 4.79 to us, we scored 0 goals. Now, most of that is down to the first leg. So I think we gave ourselves a mountain to climb. I think that's where the game was lost. And I don't want to re-litigate the striker debate. We know where we are in the transfer stuff, but they took their chances, we didn't. And that's that. And it's odd because we as fans, it's all like we're so up and down because look what we did to City. We scored 5 goals against City. No one said anything then. We were all eulogising. We were all loving it. It was brilliant. Whatever. All of a sudden, we don't score again. A couple against Newcastle, and we're the worst team in the world. And it is the truth lies somewhere in between because it's just fans. You go highs and lows.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think majorly the fact the first goal makes it 3-0. Like, in fairness, I think at that point, I don't really have a huge problem with the fact that mentally we take our foot off and go, well, that's it now, innit? We're not going to score 3. And to a certain extent, it doesn't bother me a great deal either. I'd sort of totally written this game off. I got a bit of a hope in me after the City game, but ultimately, as soon as I saw the 1-0, I just thought, well, that's okay, innit? We'll just, hopefully nobody gets hurt. And we'll regroup in a couple of weeks. I hadn't been thinking about a Carabao Cup final anyway. So yeah, personally, that's sort of where I've come at it as a fan, at least anyway, is that I don't want to not care about any given game, but I'm not going to sweat the small stuff in my eyes. That even though it's a semi-final, the position we were in, it just wasn't going to happen. And you take the positives that overall it's been a great week. Overall.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And look, they deserved it. I don't begrudge them. They took their chances. They played us perfectly. We didn't, and that's just football. And good luck to them, or not good luck to them. I'm not too sure which way I'm swaying at the moment on that one. But yeah. So look, in terms of the actual game itself, after 4 minutes, we're already in trouble. Isaac was played through down the right, and this was the finest of margins. A great finish. Took it so well, took it early, but offside. And now I didn't quite. You asked me on the message about the announcement. I didn't even hear the announcement. I mean, did he mention toenail when he said it was offside?
It was a bit weird. So obviously, like I'm quite used to sort of both rugby, a lot of rugby, and you got the ref, your ref mic,
the TMO,
I can't remember the name of it. But you pick a ref radio. That's it. You pick up a little ref radio, and you can listen to the ref while you're at the game, right? And that's brilliant. I really like that. And you'll see a lot of generally a lot of rugby aficionados doing that. The ones that are having slightly less beer at a game will generally pick up one of those radios, and then. In American football as well, I've been to American football games, and you've got actual announcements from the umpires as well, from the refs as well. So the concept's not unfamiliar to me, but watching it in person was just weird because it feels a bit stunted and forced. The guys kind of stating what it is that they're going to do, and in particular saying, and so for now it will be a free kick, will be given, blah blah blah. To which it's just a bit odd because, like, when it happens in rugby in particular, there's a lot more communication between refs and players. That's the reason you listen to on the ref mic. In American football, a lot of it is that there are extremely granular rulings, and there are also a million refs that don't agree with each other. So you're quite often announcing which one of the refs calls is the one that you're making, or they have the concept of balancing penalties, where it's like that team did 1, this team did 2. We're going to give it against the team that did 2 instead of 1, and stuff like that. Yeah. And even seasoned American
football, it's the nuanced stuff.
Won't know what it's meant to be. This was just a bloody offside. I don't really see why it needs to be announced. I certainly don't see why at the end they need to tell us it's a free kick to Arsenal. Because, of course it's how offside works. But there's a very limited rule set in football to actually do this stuff for. So it's a bit odd.
Yeah, no, for offside, it's obvious. You know what's happening. It's obvious. He puts his hand up, indirect free kick. Let's get on.
Yeah.
I think we're going to do all announcements. So every VAR decision we're going to do. So it just takes the thinking out of it. It's just one less shitty decision that they have to make and get wrong. So if they say all announcements, then that's just clear. It just happens that offside is pointless because we know. I just want it. Yes, and Isaac was offside just by a toenail. Oh, if you only could see it, it was really close. But sorry, mate, you were just offside, and we did draw the lines. Honest, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, obviously
the
that's not
interesting
gonna...
bit though actually is where PGMOL have actually said why they were doing it, which is that they've talked about it being about transparency and trust.
Yeah, but I didn't hear a thing. I didn't even know he was saying it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but then that's the usual thing anyway. If everything gets, nothing's ever been designed for the fan in the stadium these days, are they? And the VAR experience hasn't been designed for the fan in the stadium anyway. But it's just quite interesting that they've gone for that rather than educating new fans or anything like that or spectacle. But it's just transparency and trust, which is fine and all, but it only really helps with the VAR stuff. And to be completely frank, perhaps just actually allow the audio of every single VAR decision to be.
Yeah, well, we're a long way from that because that just shows up the incompetence. That shows up the incompetence. I don't think they're there yet. And look, anyway, and it was offside. So there we go. And then there was the sliding doors moment, as you said, on the 19th minute. Odegaard should score. He slashes it and it hits the post and from just inside the box and goes right. And that's one of those ones. He gets on target, 1-0, bit of nerves. But there was one thing, and if you look at it closely, that ball was spinning so much. It wasn't just a rolling ball. It was like screw back in snooker or something. Like when you see the ball really spinning, and with his right foot, it was always going away from goal, and it was just. He's a professional footballer. He should do that, but yeah, it wasn't just a rolling ball. It was like gyrating massively, and that will have an impact on it. And especially if you're not going to hit it sweetly with your left foot, which you would normally, and he just sort of swings at it a bit, and that hits the post and is reminiscent to Martinelli in the first leg, clean through, hits the post. 1 minute later, Saliba, great player. Love him, Rolls Royce, whatever. But Isaac had him yesterday, and Saliba seems to have an issue with high balls over the top that turn him, and he tried to intercept. Isaac somehow got to it. 1-2 with Gordon, another great shot. But they hit the post, goes to Murphy. Here's the post, and it goes in, and that's football. That's variance. Yeah,
I mean, in terms of the very individual game, I thought it was pretty much one of those games where the breaks just went a little bit more their way, and it wasn't, it wasn't a huge amount. It wasn't like they absolutely dominated us or anything.
No.
They, as you say, they took the chances. We didn't. That save from Dubravka as well, I was very impressed with. So and it just felt like, for me at least, and watching it back, knowing the result. You were just watching that tale being told, really. It was, at no point did I feel like, all right, they really have hammered us here, No.
And they didn't have to.
But the fact they didn't have to was, to be honest, I just, that game was always going to be, first goal wins it for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all about that first goal, and they've been getting that first goal in many of the games recently. So it'll be interesting when we get the away, the league fixture. When it's not a cup game at our place, that'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to sort of that towards the end of the season. And then, of course, we don't make a signing across the forward line, and Martinelli goes off with a hamstring injury. It was just the most inevitable of inevitable things to happen. And hopefully it's not too bad. He was seen getting on the plane and to Dubai, and I'm sure if you've got a hammy, that's not really the best thing for you. So maybe it was just precautionary. Maybe the scan came back as not too bad, and they'll manage it, and a bit of massage in Dubai sun. It should be all right.
You can have a pull, you can have a strain, you can have a tear. And if it's not a tear, then more than likely it's physio for a week or so.
Anyway. Yeah, so it should be all right. And then. Second half, there was the two incidents again. Saliba and uncharacteristic mistake, gives the ball away. Raya's miles out of his goal, and you just, Gordon takes a shot, but it curls wide, and then in 51 minutes, 2-0, and again another uncharacteristic mistake. And I'm not going to hang Rare out to dry for this. It was a stupid pass to Rice. He got tackled. Ball falls to Gordon. Simple goal. Look, we play like this, and that's fine. Game state, mental state. It's going to happen. He's not going to do it in a proper match. So
the main thing is, when's it last happened?
Yeah, exactly.
If we compare it to, and I think this is one of the things that is alongside his general goalkeeping, which has been, I think, really fantastic for a good year and a half now. If you look at the mistakes we used to have like that with Rambo, who I love to bits, but when Rambo was there, this used to happen. Every 10 games, one of these happened.
Yeah.
There were 3 to 4 every single season that we were getting caught out in this position. And this is the second time I remember Raya doing it since he's been incumbent in goal. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth. You play that way, exactly as you say as well, game state, whatever. You just go, okay, it's going to happen sometimes, isn't it? But it's not happening that much. And it's nowhere near as much as an Onana, for instance. Or, there's been a whole bunch of them around the league, right? And we've got one of the good ones where it's a once-a-season phenomenon. All right.
Yeah. And if you're going to do it in this game. So that's fine. Yeah, exactly. Get it out of your system. You just know. So it's fine. So look, game over. It was over. Fine. We lost. I say good luck to Newcastle. They deserved it. So, and I think maybe you alluded to it. I mean, how disappointed were you in general being knocked out of the semi, not making it to the final? I mean, we can't turn our noses up at silverware.
It would have been great. I think just I have a bit of an issue with the two legs in the Carabao in general, where I just feel like it's almost, and actually, Liverpool and Spurs yesterday proved it wrong. But so often it's the case that if you get yourself into these 2-0 leads at a time of year when you're playing an absolute boatload of games, it's just like you're just not going to come back from them. So, it is what it is. I mean, I'd have far rather that it was one leg and we just got knocked out, and that was that. And I do rate a League Cup. I do want us to win it. But how disappointed am I overall? Not massively. And as a campaign, we got to the semi-final. That's fine, isn't it? That's probably in your list of bare minimums. That's probably where we should be.
Well, I don't know, because I think we had the worst of all worlds. As in, for me, the Carabao Cup, you either get knocked out in the fifth, so you've played the kids, given them some chance, or you win it. We had the worst of both worlds. We got to the semi-final and we had 2 hard fixtures in an already congested January. And given the state of our squad, I know we wanted to beat Palace and it's nice, and you want to be in with a chance, and that's fine. But it's either fifth or win. In between is just...
You're not giving them better performance marks for going out in the fifth, though, are you? So, that's retrospect.
No, but at least you get... So. At least if you get to the fifth, the kids have played, you can give them a chance. So I don't... Because there's arguments saying that, actually, if you're in Europe, you shouldn't even be in the Carabao Cup. And in a way, I like that idea, because it gives other teams a chance. If you think of who's won it, it's always been top 6 clubs and all the rest of it. So I think actually, it'd be a nice trophy. Imagine the story of someone like Brentford or Brighton or a small club like Newcastle goes on to win this. Something like that. So And
I actually really like that as well. I honestly don't. Yeah. I have no issue with it. I kind of like it. I think it's another way to approach the congested fixture list. Yeah,
but then when do you give the chance to when Airy and MLS? I mean, look, they're playing now because they have to. But other than that, they wouldn't get their chances. So that's why I say up to the fifth. But then if you get knocked out in the fifth, that's fine. You've had a few games up till Christmas, and then you can forget about it. But look. Of course, I'm not going to turn my nose up at silverware, but this is the fourth on our priorities. We're a 2-0 down from the first leg. Annoyed, but I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, but this then leads me on to a sort of another question: do you think Arteta has a big game in cups issue? I mean, his record, apart from winning the FA Cup, but that was 5 seasons ago, is not particularly great. Losing to Forest, Liverpool, City, Man United. Then there was Bayern and Sporting Lisbon. is our focus so much on the league that subconsciously cups are secondary? I mean, I can forgive Bayern, but domestically, it's not great.
I really can't see that with Arteta personally. Whether it is with some of the players, I don't know. I mean, I think you have to approach some of those individually. The Bayern game, for instance, I think was just. I think we were overawed a little bit as a team in that game, and we were just very naive, very very naive, and a bit callow to European football at the time, and just that was that for me. In other cup games that we've had these tough fixtures, and we just haven't necessarily looked quite at the races in a couple of them, and they've always been early rounds as well. And it maybe feels like the other teams treated it as a bigger game than we have. And I think for this one as well, Newcastle are desperate for this, right? They are desperate for a bit of silverware, and yeah, I don't think we necessarily are. I think you are kind of right that maybe it's a. I think it's anything conscious. It's just a subconscious level there. These like kind of feel like they're, this is the fourth priority, and it's showing on the pitch.
Yeah, I think there's something there. It's not that he doesn't want to win; it's just that he has to prioritize and all that. And we do not have a squad at the moment that we can challenge properly on all four fronts, and you have to manage.
Barely anyone has, to be fair.
Yeah.
The problem is now those four fronts are so many games, and also the quality of the teams you're playing against. You just don't get the opportunity to rest up in the way that you used to. And I think if you look at, look at City. Would you say City squads are capable of challenging on all four fronts? I mean,
well, they have done. they did the treble a few years back.
Absolutely. But you look at most of them.
I mean, you need a lot of luck. You need luck.
Fragility in the majority of the big clubs out there at the moment. And really, unless you're Real, who I do think squad-wise, I mean, Christ, you look at the depth that they've got. And to be fair, also, I think, probably Bayern actually as well, who've probably got less of a calibre of top player and more of a broader, big squad that competes on lots of fronts. Sure, but I don't think many Premier League teams have. I don't think Liverpool have got a better squad than us particularly.
No, they just happen to have a fit and healthy squad at the moment, and that's it. Yeah. I mean, and that's where luck comes into it. Luck comes in, and stuff, and momentum and stuff. You feel that we're always going into these games not with the momentum, not with we're winning it, we're top here, we're doing well, and so on, and that momentum and that winning thing, I mean, which is odd actually. If you compare this, and I've got a bit of note later. Actually, compare this. We're unbeaten in the league since the last international break. That's 14 games, 9 wins, 4 draws. So compared to, so I think squad state, season state has played a big part in this, and you sort of it feels like he has to look like he's gone full strength for this game. But I think we agreed at the beginning that were the players at 100% giving everything. They gave everything against City. Did they really give everything that night? And there are other things around finishing and stuff that are mitigating. And if we had better finishers, but if we had different options, it could be a different story. So this isn't really about Wednesday night's games, just sort of cup games in a whole or cup games this season. So I think there's a bit of everything in there. So I think a bit of how we approach things, a bit of squad state, a bit of prioritization, all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a game where we got sucker punched, and then we've had a game where we've played it out for, played through the motions for about 70 minutes of it. That's pretty much it for me. And I think it's a good reminder, actually, the games unbeaten in the league. I mean, ultimately, outside of this cup competition, we've lost 3 competitive games all season. So taking 2 of them in the space of a couple of weeks against the same opposition feels, pretty crap and really deflating, right? But in context, it's it's not a great deal for me. I just sort of write it off and go, the game was lost in that first game. I almost don't acknowledge this second leg, to be honest, because
it didn't happen.
It was just such a devastating blow. I just don't think. I don't think there was much of a match we played. It was literally you had to have things go your way, and if they didn't, then you weren't coming back into it
No, absolutely not. So anyway, it is what it is. We move on, and we'll get to the sort of remainder of the season. But on to happier stuff. um, so look, this week, after last week, after the Man City game, there was all the banter, there was all the stuff about be humble, and it started from the 2-2 draw at the Etihad. Haaland throwing the ball at Gabriel's head, and then MLS, who the hell are you? And Arteta, stay humble, and that's fine. Bit of banter, no harm done. Everyone, it's fine. It's rivalry. It's a bit fun. We sort of take it seriously in a faux sort of way. We're not going to, and it gives, you get these pantomime villains and stuff like that. And Haaland is now that pantomime villain, but it's no more than that. And it gives us sort of a, someone to poke a stick at, like the crowd were doing last week and the songs we were calling. But it's all at a level, and I think it's fine. That's football, and that's part of the fun of football, and we should give as good as we get. So there was a situation yesterday where the Newcastle fans were singing, about Arteta. It's all about the ball. After he was forced into making a comment about the EFL Cup football ball. And that's fine. You take the mickey because, and yes, they've taken it completely out of context and completely wrongly, but that's their right, because otherwise you wouldn't be banter. It's like, well, yes, I know you didn't particularly say that about the ball being at fault in the...
It's fine, isn't it? Fine.
Yeah. But you can't really say that in a song. So just, it's all about the ball. And that's fine. And good on you. Fair play. And we'll say something. We said, like, you've won fuck all and, whatever. So it's just, that's it. But what's happened this week, and that's between fans, but what's happened this week in the media and the response to Miles Lewis-Skelly is appalling, and I hate it. And I've and I was wound up writing about this before this, but before I go into my bit, what's your take on the complete overreaction to the Miles Lewis-Skelly celebration?
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, on the day, pundits were kind of a bit all over the place. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't. Whatever, and that's fine. And it's all very personal opinion, whatever. The stuff that's been coming out of the tabloid news sources mainly has been pathetic. It really has. But I think you have to think about why some of these are made, and the vast majority of them are ultimately being written very, very quickly in order to just shift a load of clicks and get people on them, half the time as hate clicks, right? I think they're there as much as anything. I don't think this is feeding non-Arsenal fans something for them to agree with, because I don't think most of them do. I think it's literally just, this is asking us to click on them and be outraged. And that's it. And I think, ultimately, I fueled a couple. I stupidly went on one of the Daily Mail articles and one of the Sun articles, I think both rags of which I fucking hated for about as long as I can remember. As do most of the people who write for those rags as well, if you listen to any biographies. But yeah, I looked at a couple of them, and you look at them, there's no substance. There's nothing really going on. The ex-pros are the ones that I do, get annoyed about most, because they, on the other hand, they should
hypocrites.
Yeah,
they're hypocrites,
and they change their mind on it all the time. And you've said this about Gary Neville, right? I rather like Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and all of them lot. I actually do enjoy all of them.
They're smart people. They're intelligent people.
Yeah, I think you have to be really, really mindful sometimes of the fact that a lot of things now across a lot of media is made for 5-second clips. And if you watch only the 5-10 second clips, you will largely be outraged. But when you get these examples of folks coming out and criticising them and saying stuff along the lines of you shouldn't be allowed to do that, it's just really bizarre. Because then in the same breath, they're going, we absolutely love his arrogance and the fact that he steps out on a football pitch like a young Wayne Rooney thinking that he's owning it. So, like, make your mind up. Is it one or the other? Because if you want him to be a character, this is what characters do. And, this is not, this is the sort of thing that Wrighty used to do. Some of the great characters the game used to do, and that we lost from the game, I would say, in the sort of the early years of football overload all over the place, social media stuff, and getting some characters back would be really bloody nice, personally, I think, including some villains, including some folks that I don't like. But you can
But it's
do
got to
that.
be the right sort of characters, though.
Fan-wise, you can do that and have players that are right. He was hated by a lot of fans and also loved by a lot of fans as well. He had a love-hate thing wherever he went. And I think those kind of characters are brilliant. You know, there's some of them that used to come down the Arsenal that were pantomime villains for us, but you still respected that player and you respected the character, and you had a bit of fun with it.
Well, what's ironic about all of this is the person least bothered by this is Haaland, because he strikes me as the sort of character. He knows who he is. He gives it out. He gives as good as he gets, but he can take it. He's not there clutching his pearls, going, "Ooh, how dare you!" My celebration
in the world, isn't he? So he's all right.
Yeah, no, but also I think that's his personality. I think he's the one. Yeah, no, but his dad's coming out to defend him. But I mean, the tabloid stuff. I mean, I know you're right. It is for clicks. These guys are enabled. It is for clicks and so on like that, and it's for reactions and things like that. And actually, it's the media who you're for. So if you look at Jamie Carragher on, is it CBS, on the American stuff versus his Sky stuff, he's chalk and cheese. Chalk and cheese. So it's what his paymasters are telling him to do. And then there's just fucking puppets. You know, who are you genuine to? And I hate that, the hypocrisy and the disingenuousness of it all. But I mean, for me, the typical one everyone's talking about is the Jason Cundy thing. And for me, and then general stuff, some of the tabloid media,
He's so nearly perfectly named Jason Cundy, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I posted stuff and someone told me I spelt it wrong, but it's like, for me, it's bullying behavior. It is bullying behavior, pure and simple, and it's about control, and it's based on what he sees and his biases and whatever it is about Myles Lewis-Skelly that he doesn't like. Now, you can read into what you will, be it subconscious, be it explicit, be overt, be it implicit, but it doesn't take much of a stretch of the imagination to understand how the likes of Skelly, Sterling, Rashford, Bellingham, Saka have all been treated in the tabloid press for whatever reason versus the likes of Foden or Grealish and co. Now, again, what is it different about those guys? Why is it that Foden's allowed to buy his mum a house and is lauded, whereas Sterling does it or some other young kid does it? Oh no, how dare he be flaunting his money like that? It's just bullshit. And for me, what I don't like, it's really setting a very dangerous negative narrative about an 18-year-old black Arsenal player based on their biases, calling him a villain post Wolves when all he did was just a professional foul, for fuck's sake, and we defended him for that. Telling people, like you said, get back in your box, wind your neck in. We only want these sort of persons with characters, these people with, and suggesting someone might break his legs over certain behaviour, So rather than praising this amazing young English footballer, no, let's go down the other route. Let's ruin him before he's even started. And what happens is you get the hard of thinking football fans who go in and they'll pile into the stadiums. And again, I don't mind piling into him because he's an Arsenal player or because whatever, but not because the tabloid press are feeding a certain frenzy. And this is really, for me, where I start to get even more wound up, because football's football, but this is a reflection of society. This is a reflection of this country as a whole. And also, I don't think it's helped by Arsenal. Now, people love to hate Arsenal, and we do certain things to wind people up and things like that. But it's who we represent, and we're a very progressive, very inclusive, diverse club, and what we represent. And there's a really good video from a Crystal Palace fan talking about why people hate Arsenal and things like that. And if you ignore the stuff that we do, like our fans online and Arteta and stuff, that's football. But we, Arsenal as a football club have always been progressive, always trying new things. Back to the days of Herbert Chapman, always wanting to be a bit different. But it really started with Wenger and his modern ways of player health and fitness, cutting out tomato ketchup. And then oh my God, this foreigner is cutting out this great English institution. He's coming and telling us how to, to be better at the game we invented, and it's evolved since then. And it's around exceptionalism and anything that's a bit different, from another country. And it's I hate it. It winds me up, and we've gone down a certain path country-wise, and then football's just a reflection of society, and it's just horrible to see. It's appalling, and we must do better. We should do better, but when you got certain right-wing agendas or tabloid agendas, it's really hard to. But we've got to keep fighting back. We've got to keep pushing back and keep calling out the bullshit.
I mean, look, they know their readership, this lot, and they know how they think and their implicit biases and stuff, and they just pander to them. And it's what it is. The Daily Fail in particular, I mean, or the Daily Hail, like when you've got, so many different nicknames and all of them are quite so bad as theirs are. I tend to just ignore the likes of them. As say, the ones that have bothered me, I think, the former footballers. Jason Cundy, I'm not sure if I need to actually consider as a former pro because, he played handful of times, scored one of the most ridiculous goals you've ever seen in life, completely by fluke. He was trying to hoof the ball away, and he's built a radio career off it. And Talkshite have been like this for years now. They are absolutely provocateurs. They were provocateurs for a long time. It's a bunch of shock jocks, and
just football though, because it's weird because the cricket is fine. And even the NFL stuff or the boxing is fine.
The cricket is a completely different market, isn't it?
Yeah, no. But they're saying so it's the football side of talk sport.
People tune in wanting to listen to those, whereas the stuff that they and they do it even with their talk radio stuff. That's just current affairs and stuff too. They go down the shock jock approach because they're trying to bring somebody in, and they don't need to be like it during a football game either. So during a football game, in fairness, they've always had decent commentary and stuff when they do cover. Which I think has been quite a while now, admittedly. But there was a time where they used to be doing a lot. But they're the thing that they do with all of these shows that they populate sort of, various times of the day now, they're looking to hook people in and get people to suddenly start listening, or they've got 1,000,001 clips they want to throw around.
But I don't mind that to a certain extent if you want to be controversial. But it's the narrative that they're creating about an 18-year-old kid. My son is 18 and this is a boy. Starting his way out in football, and he has to now deal with this shit. Unfortunately, he's a young black lad, and there's all the black people always talk about having to have the talk and stuff, and it's look, but this is ignore the racist part of this or the color part of this, whatever. He's just an 18-year-old kid, for fuck's sake, He's just making his way, And who are you to say, wind your neck in? Well, fine. Did you tell Wayne Rooney to wind his neck? Well, whatever neck he's got, to be honest. But, did you tell him to wind his neck? And did you tell... So I don't mind the controversial shock stuff and having a controversial opinion. But come on. If you said to him in the street, it's really, he's an 18-year-old kid. Do you really want to set this path? Because you know what you're doing. It's the red rag to the ball and you know what's going to happen. And I said in the last pod, people are going to hate MLS. And I was thinking just because he's a character and people want to, the pantomime villain, I didn't think it was just going to be because some see you next Tuesday is calling him out and saying, oh, be careful. You never know what might happen. I mean, it's fucking horrible.
I mean, the plus side is, though, I think the lad absolutely has the stones to carry it as well.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to at all. It's, it's disgraceful, but I think the boy has all the mental strength to be able to deal with this. I think that's all we've seen from MLS since he broke through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He just 100%. I think he'll come out of this and just continue to be fantastic for us.
And I think we're going to protect him with all we can, and we're going to really stick up for him. So and then there was the other bullshit from. I think this guy spent 17 years with Stoke, Tony Scholes, talking about having to review celebrations. They don't mind them being a bit funny and entertaining, but when they cross over into mockery or criticism, well, they might need to deal with it. It's like, for God's sake, it's like
it's just bollocks, isn't it? And also celebrations are brilliant. I bloody love goal celebrations. Like, they are, honest to God. What do we just want to see 1,000,001 Alan Shearers? Just. Honestly, it is so that the taking the character out of the game that happens.
Sanitisation.
And then bemoaning that football has changed and there is no character and everybody's so detached. You can't have, again, it's the hypocrisy. You can't have one and not have the other, ultimately. And I want that character. I want to see who the players are. And I want sometimes to think some of them are twats for it, or think some of them did cross the line, because that's what you've got to allow. It's okay. Nobody's going to get hurt by goal celebrations, ultimately.
No, it's and isn't it weird that no one said anything when Mopé mimicked Maddison with the dart throw, or when Vardy pointing to the one championship to Spurs. No one does, but we do it. Arsenal do it, and all of a sudden, oh shit, we need to stamp down on this. It's similar to the decisions that never happen. Only happen to us, but even like the Arteta rule around the technical areas, only when he started to, and it's sort of like, the reaction to it is it's just like, and they said, I don't care if someone wants to celebrate. Good, if scoring a goal in football is fucking hard. Enjoy it. Do what you like. It's fine. Phil Foden shooting people in the crowd, that's okay. But hey, my mum's a yoga teacher, and I'm like, celebrating her latest, class, whatever. It's like, no, that's that's not allowed. But fuck's sake, it's like. It's bullshit, and
but similarly as well, I'll not get wound up about stuff too. There's been a load of people getting wound up about the Newcastle tweet, right? With the
but I don't mind that.
This is the culprit, and it's got the yellow ball, and again, it's referring to the Arteta ball.
But I like
that hilarious, and there's people going, not a good look for an official account. What's
who cares? Yeah.
Why'd you take the joy out of everything?
Because you know what, you store it up and you use it back against them next time. That's it.
Exactly. It's literally just banter back and forth, back and forth. That's literally it's meant to be the point. It's meant to be what's fun. So I mean, I genuinely appreciated all their wind-ups there. I appreciated Anthony Gordon doing his humble quote. Don't get me wrong, it stings as well, but it's meant to, and it's meant to go. It stings you a bit, and you go, "Oh bloody, that's a good one, isn't it?" And that's it. And I mean, I do think that's probably a little bit of what's missing across a lot of society and online world, is just literally going, oh god, yeah, you got me there. And that's the kind of thing nobody seems to sort of get that anymore. Nobody sort of shares that. In person, the person they do, but the online world doesn't, and the online world dominates interactions, and so we just see that. And I just think it's just all a little bit pathetic. And we, the main thing, the thing not to move on from is the treatment of MLS.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's different.
From is all of the furore about what is ultimately accounts for a bunch of jokes being made at each other's expense that everybody does. That should just be anyone taking offence at this end or thinking there's some kind of agenda against us needs to take a long, hard look at themselves. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah, I think there must be a world shortage of pearls with the amount of clutching going on at the moment. So there we go. All right. Anyway, I'm glad that sort of ended on a more fun note, because it's a very difficult topic on the bigger picture, but this other stuff is bullshit. Okay, so we'll finish off. So the boys are off to Dubai, and apologies if my voice changes, is that I'm on 5% on the iPad, and I might need to unplug the microphone and plug in a charger, or maybe people might want it just to finish. But anyway, look, I've got 5% left. Look, the boys are off to Dubai. I mean, it was good to see Ben White and Saka on the plane, so that's a positive. Whether it was PR, who knows? He got on the plane and said, "Oh fuck me, that hurt." But that's good. And I think Ben White could be returning. I couldn't remember when they said after the break, whether it was this break or the international break, but I think it's this break. And then Saka potentially after the next international break. So maybe things are moving in the right direction. They said Nelly's on the plane, so maybe his hammy isn't there. And I said, look, we said 11 games in 34 days. We had 21 games in 75 days. That's one game every 3.3 days. And with this trip, when you're playing that often, it's, play, rest, recover, repeat, play, rest, recover. There's no time for relationship building within the teams or Tomnisms or maybe tactical stuff. You just play, recover, and during that time, look, as I said, in the league, 1-9, lost 4, drawn 4. Not ideal, the draws, but we're unbeaten. So I think this will do us the world of good, a bit of rest, a bit of recovery, and then we come back. So what do you expect to come out of this trip, and what you're expecting, in the following weeks and months post Dubai.
I think based on the last time, I'm expecting energy and focus to come out of it is what I'm sort of expecting. A fit Ben White will be a tremendous addition. And I think, just to confirm, by the way, Leicester is the game that he's scheduled to be available for again. So I should expect to maybe see him on the bench for that one. And then, I think that's probably the key thing for me. It's just I want us to come back, go into that Leicester game, absolutely annihilate them, just steamroller them, and get ourselves on that nice run. And we are moving into that part of the season now as well, where we get this little rest, and then you sort of play in sprints this time of year, don't you? You know, you go in between international breaks and stuff. I think, you know, the minus side is obviously we do lose a few international breaks, but hopefully this is just where you get the big momentum boost. We're focusing now on 2 competitions, and you know, we just need massive amounts of energy. We've done the tough bit in the season in terms of demand. This now is the part of the season where you need to start just absolutely firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Right, I plugged it back in. Sorry.
I thought that was the ideal time to hand over there. I was trying to keep going.
It was the ideal time.
I was having a monologue there for a bit, and I was like,
it was fine.
Is he ready?
Yeah, I was, but then the mic didn't work. Anyway,
energy and focus, Tabs. Energy and focus.
No, I heard that. I heard that, and you're right. We're still in 2 competitions. We're in the last 16 of the Champions League. Players are coming back. Bit of R&R. Let's go. You know, we're still not out of the league. It's tough. I think Liverpool-Everton next week will have a big say in determining our psyche for the rest of the season. You know, if Everton, they're on form. Last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park, you know, they're starting to score. You know, they get a win there, or even a draw. You know, it's back on, as they say. So you know,
you've got a hope, haven't you? Like,
yeah.
You know, and although, I mean, I don't think last night. I think of all the things this week, actually, watching Liverpool last night was a really bad thing to do because they seem to sort of steamroll at Tottenham, but then you just go, but Tottenham are really, really, really shite. So you know, hopefully they won't steamroller everybody in their path.
No, so look, if it's their season, it's their season. Sometimes it works out the way, but let's hope. Look. There's a Carabao Cup final. Newcastle, gnarly, horrible. Hopefully they're going to kick 7 lumps of shit out of them. Who knows? Like you know, you never know that. And hopefully they go far in the FA Cup, and you just never know. So let's just see. So I think it's the reason we're in Dubai is because we lost against Man United. But maybe this is one of those blessings in disguise. You never know. The season plays out how it plays out, and maybe the narrative is at the end of the season is that look how we survived everything and we still won. You know, or maybe it might not be that. But for now, we don't know. It's not being written. So let's just see. Let's get behind the boys. Let's get behind the MLS, and let's enjoy what's to come. So there we go. So that was good. The check is in the post, Jamie. So thank you very much.
Catharsis on tap, mate. I'm always here.
Good stuff. I enjoyed that. So our next show will be out post Dubai, pre Leicester City next week. As I said, there might be something coming up in between there, but we'll wait and see on that one. And look, you can follow us on Threads and Blue Sky at The Grove AFC. Drop us a line, have a chat. And again, just thanks, Jamie, for your time. It was really good. And until the next time, come on, you Gunners.